Good day, class. So today we're going to discuss about construction drawings and the foundation plan. So this will be our lecture for building technology this week. So if you think about it, if you're going to review your past lessons, we discussed more on the architectural aspect in the midterm. So since this is a pandemic, I won't be able to correct you personally one by one regarding your drawings. So to compensate with that, I'm going to show you a complete plan of uh, our house, which was built in 2016. Okay, so I'm going to show its construction drawings and the foundation plan. Okay, so this is an actual project. Okay, so this is our house. So it was designed by my wife, and all the structural components of it was designed by a structural engineer. Okay, so we're going to start our lecture now. So I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you'll be able to apply that when you will be practicing someday as architects. So it would be nice, class, to really see you draw this on a 20 by 30 tracing paper, but since we are in a pandemic period, so it's going to be difficult, and I understand that most of you are having financial difficulties also. So let's try to learn as much as we can. Okay, so let's start our lecture, and now. So good afternoon, class. So let's start our lecture in building tech 2. So this week I'm going to show you an example of a complete building plan for a street level residential building. So actually this is our house. So here at our table of contents, we can see that here at A1 we'll find that the perspectives. So A2, you have the vicinity map, lot plan, site development plan, floor plan, then the metal frame detail. Then sheet 3, you have the front elevations, the rear elevation, the railing detail, then railing detail B. Then A4, you have the left elevation, right elevation, then the window schedule, then isometry of window. Then A5, we have section through A, then section through B. Then the window schedule, isometry of window, then the gutter detail. Then A6, we have the roof plan, reflected ceiling plan, a schedule of windows, and door schedule. A7, we have the window schedule, the fence front elevation, fence right elevation, fence rear elevation, and fence left elevation. Then our structural, we have our foundation plan, second level floor framing plan, schedule of columns, schedule of footings, typical footing section, and typical footing plan. We have sheet 2 for structural. We have our roof framing, structural base section, one-way slab detail, fascia support detail, CHB wall and footing detail. Then we have structural 3, we have our stair section detail, the schedule of beams, beam section detail, beam reference elevation. Then we have E1. Here you can find the lighting layout, convenience layout, legend, riser diagram, general specification, schedule of loads, and location map. Then you have our plumbing, drainage and sewage layout, water supply layout, legend. Then you have our P2, plumbing also. Here you can find the catch basin plan, catch basin section, septic tank plan, septic tank section, isometry, then the general provisions conditions, then the drainage and sewage isometry. Okay, so I'm just showing you this because of the possibility that due to this pandemic that we might not be able to cover all the important points in doing your building plans. Okay, so I'm showing you this. So here, the right side, you can find here the office of the building official. And here they will sign for the land use and zoning if it's for residential. Then you have the line and grade, the architectural, the civil, electrical, mechanical, sanitary, plumbing, and fire. Okay, so this is the perspective. So as you can see, this is the exterior perspective of our house. So it's not drawn to detail. Usually we just place here NDTS. Okay, so let's see the floor plans. Okay class, so you can see at the second sheet, here we have the vicinity map. Okay, so I think in our first part of the semester on midterms, I think I did give you an exercise for this one. Okay. Okay. Then you could also find here the site development, the lot plan. I hope that's visible. So the lot plan class is where you can see your technical description. So your technical description here, those are the things that you can find in the title of the property. Okay, so let's move on to the floor plan. So I want you to see how it was drawn. As you can see here, the steps. So we place the number. So there are 22 steps going to the upper portion of the house. Then you can see here the callouts. These are the column callouts. Then we have here section 9. So this is where our section will cut through. Okay, so that's how you're going to draw your floor plan. And then for detail, we also had here the metal furring detail. So we're using metal furrings for the ceilings. So here you can find the drive pin, the steel angle bar, then the hanger rod and the rod joiner. You can find these details class if you're going to look into the details at BK Ching Visual Dictionary of Architecture. So you can use them as points of reference. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how the elevations were drawn. As you can see here, you have two elevations. Now class, one thing is that one important point rather is that when you draw your details in the building plans, you must make sure that it could be easily understood at the construction site. Okay? So when you do your details, it would much be better if you're using a bigger scale like this one. So on our elevations, we used scale of 1:50 meters. Okay, so this is the house. So we can see we placed the finished floor level, the top of beam, the upper level, the bottom of the beam, and the lower level. Okay, then we also placed that's the top of the roof and the bottom of the roof. Okay. Then we also place some specifications. Like for here, it's going to be smooth finish. Then we're going to use frameless awning window. So what does frameless awning window mean? It means that you cannot see the frames outside because it's inside. So looking outside is just like glass supposedly. Then this is the rear elevation. So it's just flat. Okay, because the location of our house is in a sloped area. So I'm going to show you that elevation later on. Okay, this is the detail for the railings. So look at this one. So what's important, class, are the dimensions, that it should be visible and easily readable. Okay. Then you should also write the connections. For example, it's 4 millimeter by 1 inch by 2 inch rectangular tube. So that's the material that we're going to use for this one. Same also here for the railing detail B. Okay, so you should be oriented to detail when you do your building plans. Okay, so these are the other elevations. So I told you later, I told you earlier, class, that our house is located in a slope area. So this is the slope of the property. You can see here. Okay. And this is the firewall. You can see, even if it's the part of the elevation or it's a firewall, you still have to indicate where the top of the roof is, where's the bottom of the beam, where the finished floor level is, the top of the beam, upper level, the bottom of beam, then the lower ground level. Okay, so these are important points. Okay, like this one. It's another the elevation. This is another view of the elevation. Okay. Then for the schedule of windows, class, I think we missed doing the schedule of windows during our midterm, so it's part of the architectural. Okay, so in the schedule of windows, you're going to describe what particular type of windows you're going to use. For this project, for our house, we used fixed glass and awning, then it's going to be frameless. Okay, so it's the number of sets, so it's one set, its location, the master's bedroom. So the type is fixed window frameless awning with heavy duty window accessories, grills, and mosquito screen. Then it has a concrete window jamb. Okay. Now our lesson, class. So these are the other architectural details. Our lesson, supposedly this we're going to discuss about the structural plans. Okay? I'm going to show them to you later on after we browse through the architectural plans of this particular project. Okay? So you have to write here the notes. It's Public 9266. It states, these drawings and documents, all information used in the architect, by the architect and the general contractor, they are the sole property of the architect. Okay, so the architect here is my wife, Maricel Vigor. So it cannot be copied and reproduced without their consent. Okay, so let's look through it. You have to be very detailed. So like this one, I'm going to place a gutter detail. My wife placed a gutter detail here. So we have a gasket strainer so that leaves won't fall through it. So it's going to be a hidden gutter. Have the angle bar, fiber cement board. Okay, so that's the detail of the gutter, and also the other elevations. Okay. So as you've noticed, this is the section of the house. So the section of the house, you won't just see something that's empty. Okay? You're going to see some details, like, for example, this area. So this is going to be your purlins, going to be your rafter. This is the firewall, the downspout. So you have to be specify everything that you're going to see with as detailed as possible. Okay? Then you just don't just leave it bare. So you have your living area, the dining area, the master's bedroom. Here the store drain, so you have here a retaining wall since our house is located in a sloped area. I think our last assignment is for you to do the reflected ceiling plan. Okay, since we are in the pandemic and I can't check your work in the in person. So I'll just show you how it should be done. Okay. Some of you did your reflected ceiling plans and you connected here the lighting, so that's wrong. So when you do your reflected ceiling class, you just reflect the location of the lights and its lighting type, and also what's going to be the design of the ceiling. Okay, for this house, for example, it's just a flat ceiling with some pin lights here. Hope you can see this in the screen. Okay, so this is our foundation plan. So if you notice class about the labeling, so we have here C1F3, C1F3, C1F4, C1F1, C1F1, C1F3, C1F1, C1F2, and C1F3. So what's the meaning of that? So why is it all C1 and a different designation for F? C1 class refers to your column. So since it's all the same size and dimension, so it's C1. So F3 means the size of the footing. Okay? So this means that these two structural components here have the same dimensions, thus it's C1F3. While this one, C1F4, the same column size but different size for the footing. Okay, so that's the concept class of naming those different structural components in your foundation plan. Okay. So at the back of the wall here, we have a retaining wall and we have the stairs going up. Okay, so let's see the schedule of footings. So if you look at into the schedule of footings, okay, these are the schedule of footings. So F1 has a thickness of 250 but a width of 1.25 by 1.25. F2 is 1.4 by 1.4, and F3 is 1 by 1, and F4 is also 1 by 1. Okay. Our F3 and F4, they have the same size, but they were designated differently by our structural engineer. Okay, maybe it has something to do with this computation, the structural analysis. Then after the schedule of footings, we also have what you call the schedule of columns. So here, C1, the size is 0.2 by 0.4. The rebars are 16 12 mm diameter bars. Okay. Same with the roofing, it's 0.2 by 0.4 then, but it's lesser at 12 mm bars. Okay. So this is the importance, class, of getting a structural engineer, because if you have a structural engineer, you'll be able to save during the actual construction. Because imagine if you're going to use the same 12 mm instead of using 8. Okay, so you'll spend a lot on the rebars. You know, let's look at the upper floor framing plan. So I hope you can see this. Okay. So this is the beam 1 here. Okay. Then we have S1, meaning this is a one-way slab. So our structural engineer designed the house to use a one-way slab all throughout the entire second floor system. Okay, so you can also see the call-outs, the columns. So basically, same column here, size is the same column size also for the upper levels. So what's the significance of this during construction? So it means, class, that during construction, you'll be able to save on cost, especially on the forms. Because you just have to repeat the same size here up to the second floor. But if you're going to have different sizes in your ground and second floor, it means that you have to make 2 preparations for your forms. Okay. Then this is the typical footing elevation. As you can see, it is written here verify. So it means that during the construction, you're going to verify it with the structural engineer. But usually, depending on the soil conditions, you just have to dig a depth of around 1.2 to 1.5 meters. But it's much better if you have the data from the structural engineer so that you can decide on that matter. So this is the typical footing plan here. That's the length and the width. Then one more thing, class, if you look at the plan, you'll notice that it's drawn in 1:50 meters. So what's the significance of that? If you're going to draw in 1:50 meters, it means that the plans will be bigger. Therefore, when you send it at the site, it's much easier to interpret. Because if you're going to draw this into 1:100, some details might get too small to read, especially for the foreman. Okay, so I hope that you learned something. So doing your foundation plan is not really that complicated. Okay. All you have to do is follow some basic principles, like what I've discussed earlier, especially in the designation of the structural components or elements. Like for example, this one, just have to, if you're going to use the same column size, then you're going to write only C1, then F for the footing if it's different. So C1 F3, C1 F1, C1 F1. Okay, so the concept is quite, I think it's quite easy to understood. So if you have any further questions, class, or clarifications about the foundation plan, don't hesitate to send me an email or contact me directly in my Facebook account. Okay, so I hope that you learned something and will be able to execute in doing this one. In your 4th year or 5th year class, I think you're going to have subjects on structural design later on. I think you're going to will be able to compute the sizes of your columns, the sizes of your footings, then also compute the thickness of your slabs and the number of reinforcements for it. Okay? Okay, so let me show you one more thing. This is also important for you to see. It's what you call the schedule of beams. Okay, so all the beams and their sizes, they are written here. For example, it's B1, the size of the beam is 150, then the depth is 0.5. Okay, this is 150 mm by 500 mm. In meters, it's 0.15 by 0.5. Okay, so do the schedule of beams. All you have to do is write down the beam mark, then the sizes. Okay, then you write also the reinforcements. When you do this in the actual class, you'll have to talk with your or coordinate with your structural engineer. Okay, then this is a sample of a beam section. So I'll remove the paper here so you can see it. So this is the width of the beam. This is its height. Okay. So if you notice, the number of reinforcements are a lot below here. So this is computed class. Then when you go at the center, the inflection point, it will change also in design. So this is something that you must coordinate your structural engineer. Then I think you'll understand this better, like what I've said, when you reach your 4th year, 5th year, when you study already reinforced concrete design. Okay, this is the beam section, and it's a beam reference elevation. So when you do your beam reference elevation, it should be between 2 columns. Okay. So what's written here is generic, so it's L/4, and here L/5. So L/4 is where the inflection point is. if you look at it in your structural, it should be a bell curve going here. Okay, so I think you have a general idea of what you're going to do later on. So I hope you'll continue working on the foundation plan and submit it on time next week. If you have, like what I've said before, if you have questions or clarifications, please email me, because I think that this subject would have been better taught if I were to teach you in the classroom setting, okay, so that I could supervise all your works. Okay, so see you next meeting class, and stay safe.